and welcome to episode 225 of the Mark and Me podcast. As always, I'm your host Mark. Now joining me on today's episode is the actress Terri Dwyer. Yes, you'll know her from many years ago in the amazing TV show Hollyoaks. I hear you right now saying, amazing. Hollyoaks isn't amazing. But as a teenager, do you know what? The drama, the crazy storylines, and everything that went with it kept me gripped, and I used to love it, so I don't care. Honestly, I thought it was brilliant. But on today's interview, we also get to talk all about her brand new film, which she not only stars in, but is the producer. And this film is called The Stranger in Our Bed. It's out right now and is an amazing thriller, and honestly, I urge you all to go and check it out. During this interview, we get to talk all about the background of Terri, how she got into acting, how her career's gone, and the world of producing, and how much she's absolutely loving life with it right now. It's a great interview and will be coming up in just a couple of moments' time. But you know the score by now. On each and every episode of Mark and Me, I always love to use the intro to touch base and talk about my last episode. It was only out a few days ago, but I got to sit down and welcome back the amazing Neil Marshall. For me, one of the best horror directors out there. We got to touch base and talk all about the amazing Dog Soldiers. That was the main focus of the episode because Neil has been on twice before. And it was so good to catch up. The response was amazing. And I really appreciate Neil coming back on. So thanks to everyone who took the time and listened. And the feedback has been absolutely amazing. But today it's all about Terri Dwyer. And for me, this is a great interview. It gets deep. We get really heavy, but honestly, it's fantastic, it's real and it's raw. So here's me and Terri talking all things film. So Terri, thanks for joining me today on the Mark and Me podcast.
Well, thank you for having me.
Terri, what I want to do today for anyone that's tuning in is take it right back to the very start. So,
now you're going to make me feel old.
Yeah, proper nostalgia trip. But talk to me when you were growing up as a kid. Can you remember maybe the first TV shows you watched or films that made you feel that you would love to try and put your heart into acting?
Do you know what? No. And I'll tell you the reason why, because I didn't really come from a family or a school where the arts were very accessible, I guess.
Yeah.
The first TV show I remember, and I don't know whether it's because it's been in the press lately, is Neighbours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I remember kind of the Kylie and the Jason, and I just remember what a fabulous life they looked like they led. But retrospectively, looking back now, I'm kind of a bit sad that I didn't know that the world of arts really was out there, because for quite a long time, I guess I felt underqualified, and I've really, really had to learn the hard way. But then the juxtaposition of that is, I think perhaps I'm a person that learns better the hard way. I think sometimes to learn from the ground up, it really gets it into your head. So
Definitely.
Despite what I've just said, I don't think I would have liked to have had another journey.
No, that's understandable. And sometimes I think building those foundations from scratch is, okay, it might be tough, but then the payoff when it finally comes is worth it.
Well, I remember when I was in Hollyoaks, oh my God, Mark, I just kept thinking every Friday when I saw Phil Redmond, he might just tell me it was all a terrible joke and that he was sacking me. And then I remember I got this letter from him after about a year. And I was shocking for a really, really long time, but he obviously saw something in me. And he said, Terri, thank you for all the hard work you've been doing, because we were doing Hollyoaks late at the time, so I was working ridiculous hours. He said, we're in danger of seeing a real actress, like I knew we would. So only Phil Redmond can give you a backhanded compliment like that.
I love it.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, when you got into Hollyoaks, at the time, I remember myself growing up and watching it and being, I'd get home from school or college, and then I remember that on Channel 4, and I was like, oh, this is great. And it must have felt incredible, because at that time, it was up there with the Coronation Streets, with the EastEnders. It was that soap that everyone loved to watch and talk about the next day at school or college.
Well, you obviously missed the beginning bit where they slagged us off something terrible. Because when we first came on, I think Phil had this idea of being a bit Beverly 90210, the kind of the glamour, the glitz, the this and the that. But that's not what the British audience wants. So all of a sudden we did quite a U-turn, and then there was, sexual encounters and murder and this and that. But yeah, you're right. I think back in those days, gosh, that just make me sound like really old. We were really, really protected for two reasons. First of all, because we shot in Liverpool.
Yeah.
So, the PAP weren't really very rife up there, but also we never really had the social media in the way that we do now.
No.
So they only were exposed to us when we were on the red carpet or we were down there partying. So I think we were able to have a really, really different experience.
It was just this phenomenon that people were obsessed with. And I think the extreme storylines where you're so brave to go that extra mile, where EastEnders and other stuff would play it quite safe. You would just go completely extreme. And in 2 episodes, you could have someone murdered and a divorce and a baby born all in like an hour. But it was gripping. I think it must have been, looking back, you must have really fond memories of that time.
I did. And you know what? I made some of the best friends and we're still really good friends today. Jez Edwards, I went to see him in his play recently. Mackay, he obviously played my husband.
Yeah.
Clive, Michaela, who plays Chloe, is one of my best friends. And then we call ourselves the older lot, which is all the original gang. We're still really, really in touch. And I think it's because, as I mentioned earlier about those really tough days when we didn't even really know if we were going to be recommissioned, never mind keeping our job. And I think we all became such a tight unit because we were almost just in it together. And it was us against, the tidal wave of criticism that started at the beginning. And I just think it really kind of cemented our friendships and our life experiences. I mean, I grew up with these people in front of the camera. But to answer your question, although my answer is very, very long, I do have fond memories. But the reason I left when I did is because I always wanted to leave still loving the show.
Yeah.
And when you work the kind of hours that we worked, it's quite easy to get into that kind of, I'm tired, and forget that actually what we've been given is an absolute gift and we're living the dream and we should all just be eternally grateful. But when you work long hours and you don't see the daylight, sometimes you lose track of that. And that's why I left when I did, because I just caught myself. I think I was doing another publicity through my lunch hour and working another weekend on pickups. And I started to catch myself going, I'm really tired. And I thought, no, this isn't me. This isn't. And I really left loving it, loving the people, loving the experience and being able to speak about it as fondly as I can now. I mean, I owe an awful lot to Hollyoaks.
I think that's really brave because some people kind of just get comfortable and know that they can stay in a role and can play it out year after year and just become the same character, but just live off that wage. But you were obviously going out at a high, which is brave, but also very respectable because, like you said, you've just had that kind of inkling that it was coming and you were starting to get the itch of, I don't know if I want it. But not many people are going to have the kind of strength or mindset to go, do you know what, I'm gonna walk away and keep it as a positive thing, because you don't realize until afterwards sometimes that it was a mistake leaving.
No, well, it was funny you should say that, because there's two schools of thought in my head in my darkest moments when I thought I'm never going to be employed again, and I think oh my God, was that the worst decision I've ever made? But then the reality is, I lost my mum when I was 22. I lost my dad at 30. I was in a car crash at 18. Really, from quite a young age, I really know the value of life. And I don't say that frivolously or flippantly. I think when you are exposed to death at quite a young age, you realize this really isn't a rehearsal. And that cliche that we're told over and over again is not a cliche. And we really are the masters of our own destiny. And we absolutely have to make each day count. Yeah. And even though I'm saying it, I still have to remind myself, even now, sometimes I fall into those pit holes of, the daily stresses, thinking, what am I doing? Why do I really stress myself about this? It's, the biggest, grander scheme things, it's not what I should be stressing myself about. So I'm trying to kind of give your listeners some nuggets of things that I've learned at my ripe old age, but with a caveat of saying, I still have to remind myself.
I agree. And I think what's really interesting then, and it was kind of hitting home as you were giving that answer, is I've just reached 40. And what I've realized now is how much of a difference there is in only 5 years. 5 years ago, I would never have the strength mentally to say to someone, I don't want to come to your party because I didn't want to upset them or let them down.
Yeah.
I'm now at the point where if I don't want to do something and I would rather be at home, with my family or go for a walk with my dogs, I will do that for me. I won't keep trying to please everyone because you can never please anyone. And what you're saying there really does hit home, because I don't know what it is about this age. I can just see a massive change. And I think to myself, will I be thinking this again in 5 years about the stuff I'm doing now? But I like the fact that I can be myself more and make sure that I take my own time on what I want to do and don't take things for granted.
Okay, well, somebody who's a bit older than you, I can say you won't. You just get a lot more tougher at that.
Right.
So I don't look back and regret what I was doing at 40, but because time goes by so quickly, every 5 years seems to be quicker than the last 5 years, and all of a sudden you stop and think, I'm having it already just this year, thinking, okay, I only have enough hours in a day. I'm trying to build a successful company. I've had a career change nearing 50, and I really want to make time for the people that make the time for me, not people that just give me a bit of lip service to keep me happy, because actually words are cheap, and you'll kind of, that will really resonate with you as well. It's really for the people that do, like Michaela, come up from London with her young family on Boxing Day because we may not have seen each other for 6 months, or I will fly over to Italy to see her and her mum, which I'm planning on doing in September. It's really about those people that don't just talk the talk, but they walk the walk, and that inner circle gets smaller, but so much more beautiful and fulfilling. And then just to throw something else in the mix, because I've never really, apart from Hollyoaks, I've never really worked full time in the way that I am now, because it's an actor. You are full time, then you get loads of time off, and then you're full time. And since setting up Buffalo Dragon, I have been full time, 6 days, sometimes 7. Your weekends and your downtime or any spare time just becomes so precious that you really only can spend it with time with people that are as good a friend as you are, and also that make you feel, you shouldn't just be with people because they always make you feel good about yourself, because there's a couple of my friends that are going through terrible times at the moment, and I'm there for them. It's not about that. What I mean when I say that is not the people that question something I did, or I come away from them feeling shit about myself because of some subtext that they may have had behind words that they've said. And I've got a lot better at being with people that really have a goodness in their heart, and only the best interests of the people that they love around them. And I've got a lot better at not being with people that when I walk away, I feel really rubbish about myself, because that's not good for me and it's not good for people around me. And I don't know why people do that. If you're with a really, really good friend, I don't know about you, Mark, but I come away thinking like I can take on the world, because I feel respected, I feel loved, I feel like we share common ground and common foundations, and they've got my back and I've got their back, and you really feel like you could take on the world, as opposed to the antithesis of that. And I've tried to, and I'm trying to really be mindful of people that are in my life that are always negative and always sit on glasses half empty. But like I say, just to caveat that, my friends are allowed to go through a difficult time.
Of course, yeah.
And I love being there for them and being the voice of reason. It's just those people that are just not good for my soul. They might be good for somebody else's, but sometimes you're a square peg and they're a round one, and you just have to accept that.
I think it's really strange hearing you talk out loud, because it's like you're inside my head. But genuinely, I used to worry about not being popular enough. So I'd want 50 friends, I'd want 100 people. Yeah. And now I can count on my hands the actual sincere, genuine friends that have a healthy balance. So it's not always, if I don't text them or reach out to them, I will not hear from them for a year or two. but those friends that it's a good, healthy balance. And like I said, I would rather have 10 of those people in my life than 200. Let's go for a beer, and then you chat and it kind of doesn't mean anything, and then you don't see them again.
But
And
they feel like 200 though. You might only have those 10,
yeah,
but
that's a
by
really
the
good
time you
point.
finish with them, your heart feels like you've had the experiences of 200 people, because they are your tribe. They are the right people that fill your body full of the life and experiences that you want. So I think it's really important to be honest about what you need as a human being and what you can give other people.
Yeah, I love it. And I didn't think the chat would go this way. And I think
No,
people
me
will
neither, but I'm loving it.
I
feel like
do. It's
what's that?
good.
Agony on. It's in the papers. Should we take some calls?
I know. It's I think like what people will be
Terri
listening to
Dwyer.
today is saying, do you know what? Like that's really hitting home. I think some people are scared to say no to going out somewhere or letting someone down, or they just want that popularity of having all these likes or popularity of so many friends on your social media networks. But if you actually just aren't afraid to just trim and get it down to a healthy number, like you said, it can feel more worthwhile than a stadium full of people if it's the right people.
It's interesting you said that about social media, because I have a slightly different thought on that. And because I read something, and I think it was Ed Sheeran, and he was saying, all people do is that they brag about all the good times, and it should only be used for work. Now, forgive me, Ed, if I've misquoted you, but I think that was the general, gist of it. Now, I disagree, because I love seeing people's photos. I love those friends that I love and I haven't been able to share that holiday, or like Michaela, who I've just mentioned, see her children as often. So I think social media has a place. I think it is a place to let people know about your work. And I know they called Facebook Face Brag, but it's not like that. I think for me, I want to share positivity. What I don't put on it is my political views,
No.
if I'm feeling negative, or my personal woes, because that's how I choose to conduct my page. It doesn't mean to say I judge other people for doing it. It's up to them what they do. And the only criticism I would have of it is, why does everybody have to criticize the way other people conduct themselves? You don't like it, unfollow them, but don't chastise people for showing the best sides of their life, or showing that they've had a fantastic holiday. And I think we all just have to be a lot bloody kinder with each other. What's this bitchiness all about? It's like the world is so angry at the moment. They just want to find something to be at. And it's like, chill out.
It is. And it's what I find is really interesting at the moment is it's cool to hate stuff. So before a film has come out onto Netflix or an Amazon Prime exclusive TV series, it's cool to say, this is the worst bag of shit I've ever seen. And it hasn't even aired. If you go on Twitter, you will see a lot of people they're so quick to basically say this is the worst work they've ever done, or, oh my God, this is terrible. And it's not even been out. It's the cool thing to try and have that different opinion and just not celebrate something that is so successful or so good. It's like someone just has to try and be different and say, oh no, it's crap, just to try and get, a response.
That trend has got to change, because with, not getting into politics or the way the world is, because, we're having a lovely conversation, but there's enough things in the world to be angry about. Maybe they're doing it to try and garner some press. I don't know, but that seems really reverse psychology to me. And I'm quite sad that that's going on, when there's actually really a lot to be grateful for. Waking up in the morning, for one, and being able to take a bloody breath.
Yeah.
That is something to be very grateful for. I just think we all need to be so much kinder to each other. I posted something on my social media, honestly, Mark, and I'm not somebody that boos. I cried reading it. It was about this little girl, and she'd written to God. Now, whether you believe him or not, that's your own private thing. But her dog had died, and she wrote to him, and she just said, oh, my dog's dead. I'm really, really sad. Please, can you look after it? And her and her mum put it in the letterbox. They received a letter from God. And she put a photograph in it. It's given me goose pimples even thinking about it. So somebody in that postal office has read that letter and has had the beautiful nature to return it with the photograph and say, I have your dog. She is really, really
Oh,
happy.
that's beautiful.
But we have no pockets in heaven. And so I'm going to send you the photograph back so you can put it in your pocket. Oh my gosh, isn't that lovely? That's
Amazing. It restores my faith in humanity.
I know. And I shared it and I was like, this has just made me cry, because I just think we need a lot more of that. There
It's
are
true.
good in the world. And if we stop making it our daily commitment to find the bagged or be negative, and we look hard enough, you'll find all these beautiful good souls. And I'm not necessarily talking about religious people. I'm just talking about good people.
Deeds and good people. Yeah,
good deed. Yeah, we should do one good deed today. Maybe that will help.
That's it, just one. And then if everyone does it, it adds up.
It's got to help a bit.
So at the moment, obviously you're doing a lot of press for your new title, The Stranger in My Bed. Now, this for you is a big step, because obviously it was shot in quite a short amount of time. You got to work with an amazing set of actors, actresses, producers, directors, and I believe you're producing it yourself as well. Is that right?
Yeah, I am.
So how did this project all come about to you? Was it just an idea you had with some other people you've been working with, or was it at a production stage that you got involved?
Do you know, it's quite a long answer, so bear with me. I think I was starting to gravitate to producing. I did a play in the West, just in London, and and I was seeing final cuts of things and finding myself going, oh, I wouldn't have done it that way. I wouldn't have done it this way. So and instead of moaning about things, I thought, you know what, I'm going to do something about it. So the first thing I produced was a beautiful play called Revlon Girl. And we tried it out in London, and then we did a tour of Wales. And actually the writer and the then director took it on its own journey, but he ended up being nominated for an Olivier, which was immensely incredible for the writer. So I dipped my toes in there. And my business partner, Greg Barrow, will tell a very different side to this story, because I tell everyone he stalked me for 18 months before I gave up and decided to go into business with him. But the truth of it is, I met him at the Berlin Film Festival. I was there with another film, the first film I'd actually produced, which was Outside of Buffalo Dragon. And we just got on really, really well. And I'd started to kind of start picking up ideas that I had and write things. And then the world went into lockdown, and there was absolutely no way we were going to be opening theatres up soon or cinema. And I thought, what am I going to do? I'm in an industry that is closed for the foreseeable, and there's no sign of. And I remember really clearly standing by my kitchen window, and I happened to speak to Greg on the Friday. He was like, why won't you go into business with me? And you know, the truth of it, Mark, I was just scared. I was scared. Failing. I didn't understand why somebody would want to back me. I didn't know why. And, everything I've had in life, Mark, I've had to really fight for. And not to say I didn't fight for this, and I got absolutely hammered on the Saturday. I was like to my husband, why would anyone want to back me? And he went, you're an idiot. If somebody wants to, what have you got to lose? So on the Monday I rang him, I said, let's do it. 10 weeks later, we were on set, having optioned a US Today best-selling book by the same name, The Stranger in Our Bed, psychological thriller, which is a genre that I knew I loved and would work. And we adapted the book into a screenplay, all in those 10 weeks,
Wow.
Did pre-production, and we were all in lockdown. So we did pre-production on Zoom. It was bonkers.
This is amazing.
Bonkers. And then we had to put all the COVID protocols in place, which I'd never done before. I mean, looking back, actually, it was pretty bonkers.
Yeah.
But, I've always been pretty ballsy, and maybe that's because I've never really gone the traditional route to things. I've always done it the hardest possible route possible. So, and the first 2 weeks we shot in a manor house, so we kind of used it like a studio. And, we had to do loads of COVID tests, and we were all living together and working together. But in my head, we'd then boxed half the film. So when we came to London, we'd already shot half the film. So I felt a little bit less pressure, but it was still really stressful because we didn't really know how it was going to go. And London was the hotbed of COVID, and a lot of the the services were shut down. So we had to be really inventive about how we did catering and props. But, looking back, is probably one of the biggest growths I've had as a producer, because I think out of everything in life, when you are hit with the biggest challenges, you grow the most. And I'm immensely proud of it, immensely proud of what we achieved in such a short time.
The first thing that goes through my mind when you're saying all this is maybe the next thing you work on as a producer might seem like an absolute breeze with no COVID and no lockdown and no restrictions of having to do it in 10 days. And
well, I thought that 10 weeks. I thought that, but then we've already shot our second feature film called Bowl and Shoes. And I thought, we're going to prep it to an inch of its life. We know what's coming. The first day, our grip got a positive COVID test, and we were filming outside, so we were able to ring fence it. But what we didn't factor in is the pandemic. Do you remember at that time where the whole world was getting pinged, and then we didn't really know if it was obligatory or not, whether we were losing whole departments daily.
No.
Honestly, Mark, that film was even harder than Stranger in Our Bed. I'm saying the next film must be...
The next one then. Third time lucky, yeah.
But I think this is just producing. I think how independent films get into production is nothing short of a miracle. And I think everybody should be championed for doing it. And may I just send a little message to all those keyboard warriors out there? Please just be mindful of the difficult journey that a lot of these independents go through to bring it to you before, you find it very easy to judge things that may not have been in our control. And that is sometimes what frustrates me, but touch wood, my head profusely. We have been premiering on Showtime ahead of the US release, and people have been incredibly generous and kind so far. Let's see what the UK has on store for us on the 5th of September.
Fingers are crossed, and it's incredible to hear your journey, because you've obviously gone from in front of the camera to kind of behind the scenes now. And as a producer, I suppose now you've got this taste for it. And as much as it's been challenging, the fact it's now your full-time, like you said, you don't get a break. You sound like it's, I don't know, just talking to you today, you sound like you've never had so much drive and passion for something. And it's only the start.
Yeah, funnily enough, I keep saying funnily enough. It's not really that funny, but I was always worried about producing because I thought it would take me away from acting. And I was an actress in Stranger in Our Bed, but that was very difficult doing the two. But I don't think I realised how much I would love producing. I'm a doer. And as any actor, if they're being honest, will tell you, first of all, a lot of acting is entertaining yourself while you're off camera. And the most magical bit is when they shout action, but that's such a small bit of the acting process. And I really do enjoy being responsible for the journey of a film. I mean, we've got 3 more that we will be out to finance shortly. We've got about 8 or 9 TV projects that are with various channels. I wish I'd have known this job years ago.
Yeah.
Because I think there's so much more I need to learn. I need to work with producers that are much more experienced than I am. I want to work with producers. I also want to work with women. I love it when I walk on set. And I'm not a feminist per se, but I want to caveat what I'm about to say by saying that, because I'm a champion of men. I'm a champion of talented people. But our industry is still very underserved by females, because I think sometimes female technicians, it's quite hard to become a female technician.
Yeah.
And females en masse can get quite a bad name still, for being bitchy or this or that. And my experience in the industry, when I've gone on set and there's been female technicians, they've been incredible, incredibly talented, incredible drive, because they've had to really, really fight for their position. So I'm really keen to work with a female producer and a female line producer, not all female, because I think there's a reason we're a yin and yang. I think we need males as much as males need females. And I think that balance on and off set is really, really important. It's about working with people. I want to work with nice people that understand the struggle that we have in independent film.
It's a very good point, and I think I've spoken to quite a few up and coming female directors recently on the podcast, and they're all saying the same. So it isn't just you, and it is the overall kind of vision that everyone's having. But I think we are seeing a healthy change, and I do believe that the industry is getting better. It's not where it needs to be, but I have seen over the last 5 years, especially in the horror community, a lot more female directors and producers really making a name for themselves and standing up for themselves. And it's so positive to see at the film festivals when the red carpet is full of such amazing talent.
Yeah, well, we've just attached a female director to one of our feature films, and it's her debut. She's directed shorter form content, and she's just so exciting. And there's something lovely and magical when people are just always on the same page. I think that's when you really can pull together. What I really don't like on set is any egos, any drama. No. We all work really long hours, and we've got to have fun. I'm not saying have so much fun that you don't get the job done, but you want to enjoy your experience and the people that you're working with. And certainly with Stranger and Bolan, both of those experiences, although were really, really difficult, they were great fun. We work with great people, and we at Buffalo are really trying to build a family that want to come back and work for us, because if the platforms carry on the way they go, and we're never going to be able to afford crew, never mind. The disparity between independent film and what we can afford to pay and what we can't, and what the crew are getting paid by the streamers, it's really difficult to not make people feel undervalued, which is absolutely not, as producers, what we want to do. But we are working with really restrained budgets.
It's such a hard one to get right, isn't it? Because you want them to feel valued. You want them to feel like they've done a job that they've been paid and deserved. But at the same time, everything's on the shoestring budget, with everyone pulling and making it tighter as you're working. And it's impossible to juggle.
It is, Mark, but there does need to be some kind of passing the elevator back down and support indie film, because if they don't, we're going to be squeezed out, because obviously investment in film is very, very difficult, because the return on investment in indie film or any film is usually quite slow. So, there's a price point that's a sweet spot for investors. So if we can't bring the money in, because before we even get to production, the crew is outweighing what we can get back for our investors, you're just not going to get investment. And I think the great thing about independent film, which we need to remember, is we get to tell stories that perhaps studios don't. We get to give people an opportunity to step up in their chosen roles that they wouldn't have on massive budget films. So I do think we've got a place. Of course, I'd say that because I'm an indie producer.
But it's true.
It really is. And I think there needs to be something done to try and support us during this changing landscape at the moment, while cinemas recoup and, kind of lick their wounds after the damage that COVID has caused. And also why the streamers settle down, because of course the studios have realised they can save an awful lot of P&A and go straight onto the streamers, and boom, you're making great money. So why would the streamers choose a little indie when they can have Gerard Butler or straight onto their platform and not have to wait for the window? I mean, I don't know how things will settle, but I hope they do soon. But any studio that wants to listen to your podcast and give us some money would be so gratefully received.
That would be great, definitely.
We're not asking much.
No, indie film is my favorite, and I'm not just saying because I'm talking to you. I've done 200 episodes, and people know my film taste, and stuff like the British films that come along now and then. These gems, stuff like Submarine, that is just a masterpiece. I recently watched one called Brian and Charles, which I thought was incredible. And there's these indie films that just get through and just start to get noticed, and when they do, all I ever think to myself is, I wish it wasn't so. I wish it was more frequent. I wish I was finding out these films every few weeks, not every 6 months. And hearing you today and how much work goes in and how much of a team it needs and how much hard work and hours are put in, it's just slightly depressing, because all I want is for people to succeed more. I want to see these companies like Film4 investing in these films and giving us more, because all we get at the moment, and this, is Fast and Furious 26 and a rehash of Indiana Jones again. And I understand it makes money, but I really feel that there should be this platform of just a whole indie world where we're getting more of these gems coming through, because they're just magical, and that these Hollywood films don't give us that.
No, well, I love studio films. Last night I watched the second half of the 4-hour DC film. I love them. I am the person that will go and watch Spider-Man and X-Men and all of those. But you're talking, it's almost like a different industry, that kind of
it is.
studio side. And if you think of Coda, I read a beautiful article about Coda. I mean, Coda, they went into, I think it was Toronto, wasn't it? Or the festival that they did very well. They didn't even, she was just saying, I really just hope we can sell our film, and then came away with a 24 million Apple deal. That was
insane.
an independent film at its best.
Yeah.
That was studio backed. And so, this is where indie producers like me, many years down the line, aspire to be, but we're not going to be able to grow and develop if we're not helped at the grassroots level. And I don't know what the answer is. I really don't, because I still feel like a child in this producing independent world. And you're right, I do have a real thirst for it and an excitement about it. I just, my business partner, if he sees emails, you'll see the end of my signature. It says something like, I often email at the weekends and late. Life-work balance is really important. Doesn't mean to say you have to do that, but it's just because I love it, and I don't feel like I'm working. I just feel like I want to get to the next phase. But it's tough. It is tough. And even selling a film, the bigger sales agents now, because it's hard. It's hard because the streamers do want those big names. So how can you become a small indie that can't afford the big names and still break through? That's a 20 million. If you ever find,
if anyone knows, if you're listening right now, email us in.
Yeah, I mean,
mark@markandme.com.
Absolutely, please let me know. I mean, Stranger, it's an ensemble. There's no kind of Hollywood legend in there, so. We're hoping that the fact it's a psychological thriller and it's based on a US Today best-selling book is a tick box in itself. But you never know. You make these films and blood, sweat, and tears, and you think you've done a great job, but you never know until it goes out there.
It's an amazing world to be in, and to hear how much passion you've got and drive is, honestly, it's beautiful to listen to. And I think people listening today hopefully will go out there and check this film out. But if they don't, we'll give indie more of a chance. To go and see them in the cinema isn't easy.
No,
they don't put them on. If you're lucky in London, they might put it on for an opening weekend, and that's it, because they would rather have 10 screens showing the brand new blockbuster. But if you can go to those Prince Charles cinemas or those independent cinemas that show these films, do, because it's the only way we're going to get people to carry on making them.
You are absolutely right, actually, in what you've said, and that's never more prevalent than now, because the big multiplexes did used to allocate, 1-2 screens for indie, but of course everyone's trying to recover after COVID, and so they're going to fill their screens with what brings an audience in. I get it, but the Prince Charles and the Curzon, all really great independent chains, Picture House, in order for them to survive and indie film to survive, then they need an audience. And I really hope that people recognize that and go and see it. It's a completely different experience. I always watch films I want to watch in the cinema, apart from the fact I'm going a little bit deaf, I think. And I can hear everything crystal clear. The joy of getting older, Mark.
I've got all this to come.
Yeah, well, you have. You're quite a few years behind me, but you don't. You're aging like a fine wine, darling.
That's okay then. And my final question for you today, and what I do on this podcast, and I've had over 200 episodes now. I've had actors on like Mads Mikkelsen, Kevin Smith, Anthony Hopkins. I've had directors on. I've had all different people on from all different walks of life, but the same question is the final question to everyone. And what I get to do, Terri, is I ask you for the final piece of music that you would like played on the podcast. So after this interview is all edited and it's all done, it's a final song that can be played, and everyone chooses something different. And there can be a reason that it's their favorite song. It was a song at one of their friend or family's birthday or funerals, or it's just a song that means something to them. But when I ask you the question, what's the song that you love that you think would be the perfect song for our discussion today on this podcast and closes this interview perfectly?
I'm going to choose something that is very meaningful, because I feel like our discussion has been very meaningful.
Definitely.
I lost my parents quite young, and my dad loved the Cardigans song, Love Me, Love Me.
Amazing.
And a year before he died, I spent a whole journey to London, from Leicester to London, with him, playing it on loop. And I actually hated it at the time. But now, when I hear it, it really moves me and brings me to tears. So it's not necessarily something that I would go out and dance to.
No, but it's got some meaning.
It's got a huge amount of meaning to it. And it just makes me remember all the amazing things about my dad, who was my hero.
That's beautiful. And do you know what? I've not heard that song for about 20 years. I remember going to something like V Festival back in the, I don't even want to know. V? Yeah, 2002 or whatever it was. And they played, and I remember literally everyone was just like, play that one song. And they obviously save it till the end. But that was a huge, huge song. Amazing chorus and just beautiful.
Yeah. Beautiful. And I haven't heard it for a long time. So I would be delighted if you played that out for me.
Amazing. It's been honestly an absolute pleasure to speak with you today. I never knew where this conversation was going to go. And the best thing is it's just gone everywhere and covered so many different topics. But I feel like we've just scratched the surface. I think like we could talk for hours. And
let's do that again at some point, because
definitely.
I too enjoyed.
I would welcome you back anytime you want, and we could do like a 2-hour special. And hopefully by then you've produced your third film and you're even more excited. And who knows where it goes? But honestly,
we could do an agony aunt and uncle section, couldn't we?
Definitely.
we
right in.
Right.
Yeah, that's it. It'd be great. But I really appreciate your time today. I'm looking forward to everyone seeing this film. I'm looking forward to the response.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you. Have a great rest of the day, and thanks again. So there it is. There's my interview with me and the amazing Terri Dwyer. Such a great guest, so open, so honest, and gave us a real insight to her background. And I love that she doesn't hide away from that. It got really deep, and I felt we could have talked for hours, and I did say that on the interview. So I really do look forward to the day that Terri comes back on the podcast and we get to talk like this all over again. As I said at the start of today's interview, we focused today on the release of The Stranger in Our Bed. This film is out now, and I urge you all to go and check it out. If you do and you enjoy it, please let me know on any of my social media channels. The best thing that I can do on this podcast is recommend an album, a book, or a film, and then you guys go and check it out and fall in love with it. I see loads of tweets from people that do this, and it means the world when I see it. If you've really enjoyed today's episode with Terri, all I ask you to do is go onto Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Share the episode on your networks, and it really does go a long way. You might think it doesn't, but hitting that retweet button means everyone on your list will then see it, and they might jump on board and fall in love with Mark and me, and then become a fan and listen to every episode. And that for me is a dream come true. It doesn't cost anything for you guys to do at home, and really goes a long way. All the links are on markandme.com, and also on there is a link to my Patreon page. The podcast cannot survive unless it's supported by my Patreons. If you're completely new to Patreon, what it is a way of you giving back each and every month. You can sign up for as little as £1 a month, and for that you're guaranteed a minimum of 8 episodes. Not only that, thanks to my amazing friends at Richer Sounds, I give prizes away each and every month to say thank you for supporting me. You'll get Patreon-only episodes starting this month. You'll get some badges as soon as you sign up, some stickers, and some amazing rewards throughout the year. It really does go a long way, and you might think, oh, it's only £1, but don't go and buy that can of Coke, don't go and buy that coffee, support me, and honestly, I will make sure that I deliver you the best episodes that I can. I'll be back in only a few days with a brand new episode, and it's a huge one. For me personally, it's someone that I've wanted since I started the podcast, and I can't wait to share it with you all. So until then, look after yourself, take care, watch The Stranger in Our Bed, and I'll speak to you all very soon.